Sponsored by Win-Wing Technologies. Introducing the Orion F-16EX HOTAS. Also available as separate joystick and throttle sets, or the stick and throttle grip components.
Hello valued viewers, I hope you're all doing very well. It's the 27th of January 2022 and the latest version of DCS Open Beta is out, version 2.7.10.18996. Very catchy title, I know. As usual, there are hundreds of fixes and improvements and additions. I've picked out the things that I think most of you need to know, and we'll go through them one by one, showing examples where required. The items that have red boxes around them will require separate videos, and we'll do those in the next couple of days. So let's get on with it. General. In-game user interface added messages history function for radio messages and texts. So entering a new mission here. Note at the top right we're getting dialogue messages from the mission here, and just let them accumulate. As well as that, I can make some radio calls. So let's go comms menu, parent, ATC. Choose an airfield.
Call key. Infield 1.
Do another one.
Request startup. Kutasi.
Do another one.
Infield 1. Request startup.
Yeah.
Sushi. Infield 1. Request startup.
Okay, I made radio calls and we've got some mission dialogue. Now we press escape, go to message history, and we can see our message history time stamped. All the messages are here. We can also filter them, so we can only show the mission dialogue. These are kind of preset messages from the mission editor, and or the actual radio messages, again time-stamped. Screen flickers black in some cases, fixed. This was a massive problem for me. Some of you it was also a massive problem, and some people didn't get it at all. And I don't usually do fixes, but because this is such a big important point for me, when I would be looking around in most of the jets, this whole screen would just go black, or half of the screen would just go black. Hopefully that's been fixed now, thank God. Aircraft AI now only pop flares when threatened by planes that can carry missiles. I know it was kind of stupid when you would chase a Tomcat in a Spitfire and the Tomcat would start flaring, even though there's no way that the Spitfire could be carrying heat-seeking missiles. Well, that's finally fixed. Aircraft AI. Heavy aircraft can now be set in one flight up to 4. So prior to this function, all heavy bombers had to be in single unit groups. This was incredibly frustrating, believe me. Everyone who edits missions will know exactly what I mean. So let's go and make a heavy bomber here. B-52, 26,000 feet. Let's make it fly over there. It's going to bomb that airfield there. And watch this. Bubba, multiple, up to 4 bombers in a single flight. That's going to save so much time. Aircraft AI. B-17 in World War II big formation. Warping and losing formation positions fixed. Again, another fix, but for me, a massive thing. I don't know if you've been watching our war games where we put B-17 formations or other big bomber formations against targets. When things got a bit hot and heavy and missiles started flying, they would just warp all over the place and skip up and down. It just looks stupid, so hopefully that's now fixed. Mission editor, scripting, added trigger effect smoke stop. In the mission editor, in the trigger logic section, we've had for a while now effect smoke stop. But I've been assured by my brains in the background in GR that it's now been added to the scripting side of DCS, to the Lua side of DCS, which is apparently a big thing, so I'll take their word for it. Resource Manager, more meaningful warehouse transfer messages added. This is quite a big thing for all you warehouse scripters out there, I know, because the in-game dialogue used to have very un-user-friendly messages. Like, for instance, this type of cargo has been delivered to Airport 25. Well, that doesn't mean anything to anyone. Now it would say, in place of that, this cargo has been delivered to Sukhumi Airfield. Well, that actually makes sense. We know where Sukhumi Airfield is. So that's an example of how that's been changed. Apparently that's going to be very useful. F-16C, obviously we have DTOS bombing mode, and we'll check that out hopefully tomorrow. Added ALQ-184 long pod. So until now on Station 5 we've been able to have the ALQ-184 ECM short pod, but now we can have the same thing but in the long variant, which sticks out a lot longer, and a lot of people have asked what difference does this make and do I have to do anything differently. We've had a good ask around and we can't find in DCS at the moment it making any difference to A, how you use it, and B, to how effective it is actually in use. So no difference apart from the looks at the moment. Hornet added separate function for the switch of launch bar. The launch bar switch is here. We can be retract or we can be extend. Now, this lovely product came out from Wing, the Hornet Takeoff and Combat Ready panel, and we found that that switch there wasn't compatible with the switch in-game. So they've changed it, thank you very much. And now, as well as the toggle option, we have separate options. One for retract and one for extend, which suits the 2-position switch in the Wing panel. F-14 Tomcat improved instances of multiplayer spawn on carriers causing wind damage to neighbouring spawns. Some cases persist. We've got a multiplayer session here. We've got a carrier with 12 AI F-14s on. Myself and RC are going to try and squeeze in as well. We haven't tried this yet, so we don't know what's going to happen. Ready, RC?
Right.
Here we go. Don't crash, don't crash, don't crash. And I'm unpausing. Okay, I'm not on fire. Where did you spawn?
On the cat.
Right, so what it's done is rather than try and squeeze in multiplayer, usually it just tries to squeeze more in kind of there until the wings start blowing up and they start touching each other. So what it's done this time is overflowed and just put one guy, RC, on the cat. So I guess that looks like how they've solved it, but okay, it seemed to work. Adjusted Phoenix flight model data to more closely correlate with CFD research. I haven't actually found what research they've looked into or what the figures they've changed, so I guess we'll just have to see how things pan out over the next few weeks. Fixed lofting definitions for AIM-54. AI should now be able to loft AIM-54s. Now this is a real big one for me because the problem is that the Tomcats in-game, if they're AI driven, they can't fire their Phoenix missiles at long range. They'll only fire them within 30 miles or so, you know, less than an AMRAAM in some instances in terms of range. Now this causes massive problems if you run big war games like I do, because the Tomcats can't be used because they just wait until they get really close before firing. Obviously you can see the problems there. Apparently it's fixed now. So we've got a Tomcat here. He's veteran. He's got one long range Phoenix Mark 60 there. Baddie there, flanker, not jamming, coming towards him at lovely high speed and high altitude. So fingers crossed it's going to work now. Oh, that's one important thing actually. We've set the Tomcat to here AA missile attack ranges, max range launch. We're telling him, specifying he can only fire, or he should fire at his maximum range, rather than waiting until no escape range or something like that. That's what the Phoenix is all about. So let's try and get this working, because that means we can go and do some more Tomcat stuff. Off they go. They're starting at some stupid distance apart. Whoops, 150 nautical miles. Fire. There, missile at. It's not that bad for an AI. That's not bad. 76 nautical miles. And pause. Just make sure it tracks. Okay, it's doing a defensive. That's right, an offensive right crank, which is good. Missile's tracking. It's pitbull. Yeah, it's the missile did work. It tracked. Obviously, evaded it and split S or whatever he did, but it did work. Right. JF-17 Thunder. New. Require engine cold crank before another start after an engine shutdown, otherwise the engine start could fail. So, for instance, if we have an engine shutdown in midair, which happens, and we have to do a restart procedure, we have to first do a cold crank. No idea why. Maybe it's to, I don't know, clear fuel out of the engine or something. No idea, but that's something to bear in mind, but doesn't justify a new video. Added. Horizontal situation display shows self-protection jammer jam coverage. RWR symbols of being jammed objects will have an underline. Here is our example. We have a Jeff here. We have no weapons, but we do have an SPJ jammer and a couple of baddies coming towards us who are about to get jammed or jamed if you are Chinese. In we go. There's a good chance for us as well to refresh our memory on the Jeff and jamming, because DCS is getting so complex with so many planes, it's almost impossible to remember how to use all these things. First, check the combat panel. Excuse me. Make sure SPJ self-protection jammer is on. Check. Next, we're going to go to the combat MFD screen. So combat. Check. We can turn jammer on and off with that command there, T2 forward. So let's press that. When it's flashing, it means that the jammer's warming up. So let's just let it warm up. Just scroll forward. Okay, there. And it says jam, but it's not actually jamming yet. It only says jam when it says jamming, or jaming, I think it actually says. That's because we're in type 1 at the moment. Type 1 is automatic mode. It'll only jam when someone's trying to lock us. No one's trying to lock us at the moment, so it's not going to jam. So we're going to change to type 2, override mode. It jams all of the time. So jam. We've all got it on forward as well, obviously. It's now jamming, or jaming if you're Chinese. And we can see now that these two RWR signals of the MiG-29 have underscores underneath, which shows that they are currently being jammed or jamed. Added inlet cover and lander in cold ramp condition. Contact crew to remove them before flight. So here is our JEF. It's cold started, and by default it now has these, well, to be honest, pretty ugly looking inlet blocker things, and I quote, a lander. Wow, look, the lander's made of wood. The Chinese have wooden landers. Oh no, they're metal. Doesn't matter, they're metal.
What are you calling it?
They called it, U-boats called it lander in the
lander?
Yeah, they call it lander in the thing, so I'm going to take the mick out of him because that's kind of my job. Right, anyway, so you can't take off like that. I wouldn't suggest it. Literally, we lost an F-35 recently in England, Britain, for not removing those things, so we should do. Now press communications menu. Now go ground crew, look, and remove inlet cover and lander. Remove. And they're gone, and we're ready to go. Added Wing F-16 HOTAS devices binding. What this means is if you have the new Wing F-16 HOTAS that's now available, please go and buy it, then you will have automatic bindings set for the JF-17 Thunder, so you won't have to go and set your own bindings up. I wish all planes would do this. Mi-24 Hind. Improvement. Further sound improvement, including rotor sound and max speed and distance related sounds. And listen to these lovely new sounds. AV-8B Harrier updated CAS page. Now it is possible to use, which is a function you have in the CAS page, T0 for targeting. Note, T0 is not available for absolute JDAM targeting. I did spend a lot of time trying to get this to work and I couldn't. However, I'm just not very good in the Harrier anymore and our expert wasn't available, so I'm just pointing it out that apparently that is a useful function. Added EHSD data page, display plane position UTM coordinate when in aircraft mode. ESHD, we're going to go in data, aircraft. We've now got MGRS UTC showing there our position of our plane. Mirage. Okay, so this month they have been making it more realistic and they've been working on the autopilot. So there's actually a lot more than I've shown here, but here is what I would call the main things. All the way down here, down to there, are changes to the autopilot system in the jet to keep them more in line with the real Mirage 2000C. As far as I can see, you're actually going to use it the same as it was before, but you may see some slight differences, which I guess is good. Next, TPC TPL test, smooth control surfaces. I couldn't get this to work. Can you guys please have a go with this and see if you can get it to work? But I've done my TPC TPL, you know, the tests that you can run, and I can't get them to move the control surfaces at all. So I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. I've tried every configuration I can think of. INS alignment waypoint read happens 36 seconds after pressing VAL. So this means when you are realigning your INS over a waypoint in flight, you used to just press the button, I think it's VAL, or I forgot exactly what you press. You press the button and then it used to immediately reconfigure the INS. Now it takes 36 seconds to do it, which apparently is, you know, what it did in the real aircraft. It takes a certain amount of time to do it before the actual system is updated. And finally, some changes to the controls. So some changes to the controls to make it more friendly inside of the Mirage. For instance, some wheel selectors in this cockpit can now be used with the mouse scroll wheel. An example of that is here, bingo fuel. You would usually have to press left and right, which is annoying. Now you can use scroll wheel. Whee! Which is much nicer. Also, adjust controls. This is a real nice one, you'll love this. If I go to search and type jet, selective jettison, combo switches. So to selectively jettison something, you have to do at least 2 clicks. You have to click on the guard above the switch to unleash the switch, then you have to go and click on the switch. Now that's easy with a mouse, but if you want to do that with a HOTAS, that's incredibly annoying. It means you have to have at least 2 buttons bound or more. Now you can have combos. So this one here opens the switch cover, then presses the actual switch and then closes it, and I've got it bound to W, so let's see what that means. W does both actions, opens this guy here and does the switch, and then releases it. So that's just a cool bit of logic that, to be honest, all of the planes should have, because it's just really annoying stuff. And finally, we've got interior lights. We've got a bunch of rheostats down on the bottom right of the cockpit for the lights, you know, turny knobs, and we now have them in an encoder friendly style, so that each of the different lights has an increase and a decrease. Now, I don't actually have any encoders on my wing stick here, but can you explain what an encoder is and how it works with this RC?
An encoder is a non-axis, basically potentiometer. It's on. It could be on your HOTAS or your anywhere on your HOTAS, so you can bind those to it and do an increase and decrease your lights with a dial.
And we finished today with the MiG-19P. Now, when I first looked at this, I don't know about you guys, but it looked like they'd added a whole new cockpit. All of that stuff has been added. Then I looked into it a bit further and I realised all of that stuff has been in there since the start, so they couldn't have added it in. So it turns out what it is, we're pretty sure, is they've just added the binds. They just put added, they didn't put binds in there. Pretty sure that they added control binds in the adjust controls menu for these switches. That must be what it is. And that is the roundup of the patch. It's a super small one, but sometimes they are, and to be honest, it's nice to have a small one for once. I hope that was useful, and see you later.